Welcome to the Calico 2022 Introduction to University Students. My name is Peter Harrison. As I mentioned, I'm the president of the Palisades Foundation. And the purpose of this meeting is to just introduce you to Calico, what it is, and then just talk about the projects that we have, and then from there, just take some questions. The entire presentation is probably going to take about an hour. I expect that we will be doing this presentation as well as going over some of the key aspects of our repositories for 30 to 45 minutes. And then from there, we'll have a question and answer period. All right, so about Palisades, we are a nonprofit organization. We are led by a number of people living in the United States as a part of the Jamaica Diaspora organization. We're not a formal member of the diaspora, but we have associate links with them. And we've been promoting tech on the island since 2016. We have a software education focus. We have IT professional volunteers who help with us. We have a number of local corporate sponsors, and we have been a Google Summer of Code participant for the past 2 years. And so, what is Calico? It's a Jamaican program. Students, developers work in Jamaica. We work on open source projects. The projects usually happen over the summer. Students get mentors, and we have milestones based on payments based on milestones being achieved. The whole aim of this is to promote collaboration, and it provides students with practical relevant experience, and all your contributions are very visible on GitHub. So if you're looking for employment, you can point people to your contributions and at least be able to see what has people would be able to see what your contributions have been in the past. And this has been very good, and I'll explain to you why in a few more minutes. We decided to start Calico a number of years ago, and at first we thought we would do something that would be like a hackathon. And the students that we spoke to, primarily through, I think it's the Computing Society and the IEEE organization in UTech, they told us that they didn't really want to do hackathons. There are so many hackathons already. What they wanted was something that would be more meaningful for them. And they wanted something that would require industry involvement, collaboration, promotion, provide the experience, hone these in-demand skills, and have the very visible contributions and the professional recognition that would come from that. And so what we did was that we created the Calico Challenge, which is a variant of the Google Summer of Code. And the Google Summer of Code, very similar to Calico. However, Google works with nonprofit organizations who are working with open source software, and in some cases for-profit organizations, and Google provides the stipends for the students. In this particular case, for Calico, the stipends come from the local sponsors that we have in Jamaica. And we tried a number of different systems and different types of approaches. And eventually, what happens is that we decided that we would create a standard set of open source projects. We had projects that students provided, and we said that that worked to some degree, but we really wanted to have something that would be more standardized. And so Jamaican companies have been sponsoring us. We've been doing this since 2016, like I mentioned before. And here are a number of companies you can see. Many of these names are very well known in Jamaica. There's the JPS Foundation, the JMMB Group has sponsored us. The Grace Kennedy has sponsored us. NCB has sponsored us. Sutherland has sponsored us. Vertis, Simtai has sponsored us as well. And many of our graduates from the Calico Challenge program get jobs very, very quickly. Rail Decoy is another of the organizations that have worked with us. So if you have any doubts as to you want to know more about Calico, just go to palisades.org/calico and read what's there. It seems like a lot of information that's on that page, but in essence, download the application form, fill it in, send it in to the email address in time. Try as much as possible to participate in the open source projects that we have. And then from there, we'll go through a selection process. But we'll discuss this more and more as we continue on further. So our projects, we want to have projects that have a global reach. They're developing region focus, and they're focused on community development. And ultimately, what we would like to do is to be able to launch the open source projects that we have as some sort of a cloud service so that we can earn an income as the Palisades Foundation. And the aim of this is to get the income from these cloud type services of these open source projects so that we can then turn that money around and then continue to have ongoing internship programs for students year in, year out. And the project that we are working on right now is Talawa. And Talawa is a community group management software. It's very much like social media for community organizations. So those community organizations would be clubs, neighborhood groups, volunteer organizations, nonprofits, small religious institutions. These are the types of organizations that we would think of. And so Tallow, when you start the Tallow mobile app, it it shows you a news feed, just like with uh, Facebook or Instagram. There are ways in which you can create events for the organization, whether as you for yourself or groups. Anybody who is registered or is invited to the event is automatically added to a group chat so that there can be chats related to that. And the events management has features such as being able to um, reserve rooms for the events, etc. Then there's group chats, just in general. We're trying to find different new types of things that can be added, like, for example, donations or advertising in the app, where the advertising comes from local companies or businesses around the community. And so, if you think about what this could be used for, in the Jamaican context, it would be a useful type of service or software for example, your local church. And we've been thinking about ways in which we can make it universally accessible. We have had people working on these application or the applications for it from a number of countries. So Jamaica, we've had people from, I think, Nigeria, Cameroon, India, and the United States working on some of these things, as well as Jamaica as well. So let's just talk about the Talawa components. There is Talawa, which is a mobile app, and it uses Flutter as the application framework, and it communicates with the an API using GraphQL. And the API is in a separate repository. It's called Talawa-API, and it is the central policeman of all the data, and it runs using Node.js. It also has GraphQL as the equivalent, I guess you could call GraphQL a proxy or equivalent of a RESTful API, but it's more flexible. And the data is stored using MongoDB, and there are some other things that we're trying to figure out that for other types of data storage or object storage for things like files or videos or sound clips and things like that. And then we also have Talawa Admin, and Talawa Admin is the web app for the organization's managers. And so this uses TypeScript with a GraphQL interface with the API. And you may ask yourself, well, why would we need to have some sort of a API or sorry, an administrative type of interface? And the reason for this would be, for example, we want the mobile app to do one thing and one thing only, and that would be just to be um, a mobile app. But there are other things that we may want to have that may be required. So, for example, we may want to be able to do some sort of moderation on some of the chats based on the needs of the organization. We may want to input, for example, payment processing information for MasterCard or PayPal or whatever it may be, so that the mobile app for the particular organization would be using this sort of payment processing. And that may require us to have plugins. So you may want to have a PayPal plugin for the API, for the Talawa admin to use, that the API would use, and make that available to Talawa. And so there could be other things like donations related type things. So we may want to have a specific donation plugin. We may want to have a plugin on the back end for things like scheduling advertising from the companies that we spoke about. So there's a reason for having the admin web portal on the back end. And ultimately, we would like to be able to see how we could convert Node into TypeScript. That's one of the ideas that we have on the Calico page that you can take a look at. And there's some many other things that may be of interest to you guys. So we have a number of goals. We want to be selected for Google Summer of Code for 2023. This was a goal, a similar goal was for last year, and we got through to Google Summer of Code 2023. We want to do the cloud service, as I mentioned. We want to figure out a way to host it as some sort of a cloud service with multiple organizations per instance, if possible. We've been really trying to see how we can improve the stability of the code, and we do that through 100% automated testing as much as we can. And we really want to have imaginative, useful ideas. And here are some of the ideas that we have listed for this year. I mentioned the portals and the plugins that we would need, the community advertising, donations, multi-tenancy, and probably a little more detail on event and venue management, ways in which that could be useful for people. And we want to have better chat. At the moment, I don't think we use subscriptions for chat, using something like Firebase or whatever, and it would be good for us to think of ways in which we could do this. At the moment, we have chat, but it's only one-to-one chat, and it's encrypted. So if you're doing any new sort of chat, we need to make sure that it's encrypted because that's the de facto standard all around. We probably want to figure out ways to have better member management and have registrations and check-ins for events. So, for example, let's use the church example before. You may have an event, and there may be a side event to that event. So, for example, it may be a barbecue, and you may be a family with young children. You may want to drop off your children at some sort of a daycare at the same location, and so therefore you'd want to check in with that location to say that your children are there, and then when you're leaving, you want to check out from that location. You may want to have just regular check-ins and check-outs without even having for the event itself rather than another event, because it could be um, it could be like an annual general meeting for the organization, and you may want to know who actually attended and things like that. So those are types of things that we want to include. Um, and then there's like we need to figure out ways to have notifications and reminders for things. How do we handle calendar notifications? How do you handle chat notifications? How do we handle um, notifications or ways in which we can notify people when things have been liked or comments and all of those sorts of things. And so these are the types of things that we need to think about when we're thinking about possible ideas. And there are links to the ideas pages on Calico, so you don't have to worry about what those links are. It's close to the bottom of the page that I spoke about before, which is palisados.org/Calico. Um, we really want to have the best students. Now, many of you will listen to that and say, "Oh no, I'm not the best student. There's somebody who always comes number one or number two in the class. That would be the perfect person." And we have a very probably a very different view as to what we consider to be the best types of students. We want people that have good ideas. We want them to make meaningful pull requests, and that means we don't want people doing pull requests for typos in our documentation. That that's interesting, but not necessarily going to be viewed um, as being meaningful for our evaluations of persons. We want there to be relatively light supervision. We want them to be reliable. If they say they're going to be turning up for a meeting, they turn up for that meeting. That they say that they think they can get something done within a particular time frame, then that's really good. and that they have some sort of knowledge of the various frameworks that we're working with. And so reliability is tied very closely to the framework knowledge as well. And we also want people who are going to be providing code, but also tests for that code. This is really important. We Last year, this time, our code was extremely buggy. People came in, they rewrote it, they created a MVVM model for the Flutter application, and we started doing testing. And we've been trying as much as possible to increase our test code coverage. We started out the year with Tallow having code coverage of about 30%. It's now closer to 60%. We started on the API having code coverage of 3%. It's now maybe about 12, 13%. And the admin portal has had similar noticeable increases in code coverage. I think the admin um, panel, the Taro admin, is about 35% at the moment. And I'll show you some of that information later on. So hold on. And then the stuff relate beyond the whole Calico thing. We've done academic coursework recommendations if people have work study programs. A number of students have approached me and other mentors for that. So for example, uh, if you have some sort of um, needs for that, we can provide recommendations, and we've done that a number of times. So we recommend that you work with your mentors specifically for that. And then let's talk about strategies for success. Visit our GitHub projects. It's github.com/Palisados Foundation. I will show you those links very shortly. Visit the website, fork our repos, review the issues, contact our mentors, get clarifications, build rapport. And we have a Slack channel. You can go to slack.palisados.org and you can log in and ask questions there as well. Work on some basic features, work on some of the issues that we have. We have a number of good first issues. Most of our good first issues that we have on each of the repositories are related to testing. And so really think about ways to do that. And then, of course, once and for all, um, get started. So uh, get get a head start. The Start as quickly as you can. It's going to be relatively competitive. We have somewhere in the region of about 20 to 30 applications each year. We probably have 3 to 5 persons who we select. And how do you compete? Focus on our test issues, select a range of test issues to work on. So, for example, if you are doing something with our Flutter code, you could look at something, tests for our views, tests for our widgets, tests for our view models. Those would be interesting. And if you're not sure how to do tests, just ask to be assigned it and then figure it out later. Just get started. Don't be afraid. There are lots of people who you can talk to. There are people, if you're doing something at 2 o'clock in the morning, don't worry because we have people in India for which it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they will be able to get back to you on certain things, right? So I think that is a useful strategy for you to consider. And of course, get ready and get started. The URL to use, once again, it's palisados.org/Calico. All right, so if you go to Palisados Foundation and you click on these links, you will see the various repos that we have. And so if you click on Tallow, you will get to the Tallow repo, Tallow API, Tallow admin. And over here, you can see all the various people that are on it. So let me click on the Tallow link, show you what that looks like. Here's a page for Tallow itself. Here's all the code. If you look over here on the right-hand side, you will see a link to our documentation. So if you click on the link, you will get to our documentation site, which hopefully will come up very shortly. But until then, I will scroll downwards and show you some other areas. So each of the repositories has a installation guide. There's a contributing guide as to how to do things. I suggest you start with the README, which is on the very first page, and there'll be links to various things that would be of interest here. All right, so if you click on um, the that link that I showed you before, you will get to the Taloa documentation. Then when you click on the links here to docs, you will see the various types of information that could be useful to you. And so you will see links to things like our our ideas page. You'll see links to some of the documentation that we have. But generally speaking, if you have questions, take a look at the documentation. But most of the things that you're going to need as a developer would be on the pages specifically for the repos that you're looking at or are interested in. So in the meantime, I'm just going to go back to our Tallow page. Let me scroll upwards very quickly. And then let's just take a look at some of our issues. If you click on the issues page, on the issues link on the page, and we have different types of issues. We have issues that are labeled as good first issues. We have issues that are labeled security. We have issues that are related to bugs, features, those sorts of things. And it'll guide. We have a guide at the top of our issues page on all our repos, which talk about the types of things that you should be looking at. And so here at the top of our issues page, there's a student internship program link, which tells you what to do. And we have a link on things that talk about what we consider to be low quality issues and pull requests. So go to the issues page, click on these links. Generally speaking, what the way things work is if you find a bug or a feature, create the issue by clicking on this new issue link. Um, Define what it is. There's going to be a template that you're going to need to fill in. It's a very lightweight amount of work. You don't have to worry about it being a huge amount of work. And then ask almost immediately if it's something that you'd like to work on for you to be assigned that work. Then you work on it, put in a pull request, and then we will assign somebody to take a look at it and give you feedback. And so it's really important that you request the assignment. We're not going to be accepting pull requests in which somebody hasn't been assigned. And the reason for that is because we've had situations in the past where people will just start putting in pull requests, and we have duplicate duplicate types of pull requests. That doesn't work well. We need to make sure that people get assigned the tasks in a manageable way, and we also want to make sure that uh, people don't get assigned multiple issues or too many multiple issues. So we now have a limit of about 2 issues per person at a time. What we've seen in the past is that people will come in and just say, I want to work on 10 issues or 20 issues. And if anybody else decides to work on them, they say, no, I'm working on it already. And it creates a situation where we don't have a fairness. And we want to make sure that we are fair for everybody. Okay? So that's another thing. Let me just go back to the Tallow page, which I think will give you some more information. I want to show you some other things there. All right, so if you go down to if you just scroll down on this page, you will see some icons. And here we go. And so you'll see this code cov 60% icon. And if you, on all our various repositories, there is a code coverage um, tests that we do whenever the pull requests are put in. We test everything. We want to make sure that any code that's put into the repository has tests written for it. And so therefore, if you put in new code and there's no test, then our code coverage is going to drop below 60%. And so we are trying to see how we can get it up all the time so that we can increase our reliability. And so on these repositories, if you click on these links, you'll get to a page that looks very similar to what we see here. And so here we can see the where we started out before at 30% code coverage. You can see it's been going up and up and up and up. Now we're 52. No, sorry, we're now at 60% code coverage as of a couple of days ago. So you can see that we've been improving. There have been dips and highs and lows for various exceptions, but we're trying as much as possible to get this level higher. And so if you take a look at this, this is a like a starburst type of thing. And I will scroll down a little further to give you an idea of some more information. So if you scroll down to the very bottom of the page, you will see that we have um, reporting for each of the each of the folders in which we have code. Just click on this link, you'll go to lib, and then you'll see view models, etc. And you'll see by clicking these links, you'll see the level of code coverage for each file. And if you click on the individual file link, you'll see the sections of the code that actually have tests and not. And sections that have tests written for them would have green indicators in a column on the left, and then there will also be stuff on the right in which it's not the case. So here's an example. So as you click lib, you will see that we have some of um, these different folders. And here you can see that this folder is 100% covered. Models is not 100% covered. View models is 6% covered. And so let's just take a look at router.dart. And so I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here you can see it's only 34.94% covered. So you click on the link. So as you can see here, you can see the lines that have code coverage are green, those that are not are red, and that's essentially all you really need to know about it. If you look at remember I told you that each of our repositories has a contributing.md file. If you read the home page, there's going to be links to pull request guideline page. There's going to be links to contributing, and we in that file it'll provide you with information that's related to uh, how to do tests. And so, of course, for each of the three repositories, whether it be Flutter or Node or TypeScript or whatever, the commands are slightly different for each way, and so we provide you with methodologies to do that. If you go to our YouTube channel, there's a playlist specifically for Talawa. There's a very similar presentation with more details on some of these links that I've showed you. So if you start maybe about closer to minute 30, you'll see more information about the testing stuff that I just showed you. And then the last 30 minutes of it is a Q&A session for various people for Google Summer of Code specifically. But there are some people that are asking questions about Talawa and sorry, about Calico. And so you'll have a wider set of questions that you can question and answers that I think would be useful for everybody. Most of our mentors are from Jamaica. I think we have two or three mentors that may be based in India. Um, but for Calico, we'd probably be using Jamaican-based mentors exclusively, and for obvious reasons. They'd be in the same time zone as you are, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't consider looking at our Slack channel and ask questions there because I think that would be very useful for many of you.
Sir, how do we get in contact with a mentor?
Yeah, so if you go to the palisados.org/Calico site, there's a link to the ideas page. If you look at the ideas page, names of mentors are there. You can send emails, for example, to mentors@palisados.org, and hopefully not hopefully, somebody will respond. That will be useful. Then there's also the Slack channels. You can get in contact with people there as well, just for general information. So there are a number of ways in which you can get access to information that you may need. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, Slack is the Slack channel is really good. If you ask questions, usually somebody will answer within 8 to 12 hours. Everybody is busy, but things there's a lot of information there. You can scroll back, you can do searches for information. I monitor it from time to time. I am not very fluent coder in the languages that we use. So you're going to have to be really focusing on talking to people on the Slack channels who are more versed in those languages. I mostly have a more of a supervisory type of role, and the mentors are the more of the subject matter experts that you'd want to talk to. Do any of you have or have worked with mobile apps using Flutter?
Okay, I'm only saying that I only started to practice it last month.
Okay,
Flutter and Darts.
okay. Yeah, so we have we have on our contributing.md file that I just mentioned before, the markdown file, we have links to how to do testing. So you can take a look at some of the test code that we have just so I can get an idea as to how it works. And we're looking for anybody that can help on that stuff. Node and TypeScript are two others that I think would be very useful for people to consider. I think the learning, if you have done some other type of um, mobile language, I think Flutter would be relatively easy to pick up. If you know Node, picking up TypeScript would be relatively easy because it's a superset of Node with object-oriented type protocol structures in there, which I think would be useful.
Yes, for contributing to Palisado's,
Hmm.
I realize that GSOC is going on
Right.
as well. So is the code base frozen for GSOC when GSOC is going on, or
No,
other things can go on?
other things will be going on at the same time. The whole idea behind this is so that people will be getting familiar with using the code bases with multiple collaborators at the same time, understanding how to deal with things like code conflicts, if there are conflicts and things like that. And so, yeah, we will not be freezing stuff. The two repositories and the two sets of codes. Oh, sorry, the repositories will be open to everybody for access, so you don't have to worry. If if anybody wants to get an idea as to how things have worked so far with the repositories and how Slack works, Patrick, I think you have done a couple pull requests already and have done some work as well. You've spoken on some of our Slack channels as well, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes, I've been involved.
Right. So those of you who want to get some more information, you can talk with him. And then also there's Jason Gale, who has been working with us as well. So you can get in contact with him. He's a good resource. He was a Google Summer of Code mentor last year, and he's a Google Summer of Code this year as well. The first thing that I'd like to ask then, if there are no questions, is this something that you're interested in doing? Does it seem to be intimidating? Because I don't hear any questions. How does do you think this would figure into your longer term careers? I just want to get an idea. That'd be that'd be very helpful.
I have an additional question
Okay.
for internships or GSOC or Calico. How is the application process like? Is it that is a technical interview, or is it like you pitch a project or something?
Yeah, good question. The the general processes are very similar, but the details of the processes are slightly different. So with the Google Summer of Code, you have to register yourself on the Google Summer of Code website, and you put in your application, or you submit your application through the Google Summer of Code website. Uh, that doesn't mean that you can't send or contact mentors beforehand and say, does this uh, does my application look like it's worthy of being considered? What things do I need to do? How do I need to change things to make it work? And have other questions like, should I be doing pull requests, etc. So that is how the Google Summer of Code works. Everything is done through their website. With Calico, it is more informal. The application needs to be received by you sending the application form to, um, I think it's submissions at palisades.org. All this information is on palisades.org/calico, and then people will respond. My general experience has been if you can, feel free to add stuff to your application. There's a standardized form, but don't feel that you're limited to just filling in the blanks in that form. And really spend the time to fill it in. I've been in situations where I have received forms in which the question asked is which repository do you want to work on, and that field is left blank. So we have no idea as to what the person is going to be working on. So we have we have in some cases, if depending on the quality of the application form, we've dismissed people outright. Uh, Generally, if you click on the link, if you click on palisades.org/calico, there are links to ideas pages or an ideas page that you could use, and feel free to consider an idea there, or maybe even two ideas if you think one or two of them may be interesting, or two may be interesting to you. We hope not to have conflicting ideas, because sometimes more than one person may have the same idea, for GSOC and or Calico, or maybe do we have two Calico people doing the same thing? But I sometimes you don't have to worry too much about that, because sometimes what happens is that the scope of the work can be broken down into work for two people. So, for example, we had a case where two people wanted to work on chat, and we realized that somebody needs to work on the front end for chat, another person needs to work on the back end, and we asked them whether that would be working well, and that helped out well. We've had situations where multiple people wanted to work on the mobile app, and they split the work, did some of the initial work of creating the MVVM model amongst three persons, and that really worked out well for them. All right. Well, if I haven't heard any more comments, just I know there are only about 6 or 7 of you on the line. Do all of you intend to apply? It'd be really good for me to get an idea. Are there other people that you may want to consider uh, learning or talking to about the whole project? It'd be just good for me to get an understanding or an idea of that.
I'm not applying this summer.
Okay. And why would that be?
I already have a job.
I see. I see. Anybody else? Would it be something you'd be interested in doing on the side as something else to provide you with other experiences?
Yes, sir.
Well, if that's the case, I would think that it could be something that you could consider as well.
Okay, thanks.
Because quite often what will happen is that you're going to be an intern working for an organization, and they may not actually make you touch any code that is significant. And in our case, the code would be significant. Stipends are paid based on the achievement of goals that you would have worked on with your mentor beforehand, before around the time of acceptance. This is very similar to the Google Summer of Code, where they ask you for some sort of a commitment to what you're trying to do, and the stipends will be paid depending on whether you've broadly met those requirements. So please take this seriously. We've had people that have started and they just haven't delivered. We've had both very good responses and experiences, and we've had bad experiences as well. So it'd be good for you guys to, if you're really going to be doing this and you really want to have the to have the visibility, it would be good for you to be a part of this. I know that some Jamaican companies use the listing of people on our Calico Challenge site, and the alumni that we have on our page as an active recruiting tool. And we've had a number of people, a number of our graduates work with companies like NCB and Rail Decoy, Simtai, and the like, because people realize that they understand how group projects work, they understand timelines, they understand how to merge code into a repository, etc. And so it's a it's a very good thing to have on your resume in the Jamaican context and possibly even broader. Um, the Google Summer of Code pays a little more than Calico Challenge. I would suggest that you try to apply to both, and don't be shy to apply to both with the same idea. You never know what might come out of it. But so make sure that you have your ideas being well founded, so that you can be taken seriously. Okay, so Patrick, I still see your hand up. Do you still have a question, or is that something else?
Yes, I still have an additional question.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
for the Calico challenge, you are doing it this year. Is it
Yes,
in the same? Is it in the same summertime period as GSOC?
yes. The timing is listed on the website. The
Oh,
times are more or less the same between the two projects or the two programs. So you don't have to worry about keeping track. They're very, very similar.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Seeing that there are no other questions, I wish you all the best. I hope that this has been useful and informative, and that you guys really take the time to apply. It's a really good program. You work with mentors from Jamaican companies. Those Jamaican companies see the quality of your work. Those Jamaican companies are probably going to be very interested in hiring you after. Even with the Google Summer of Code, the mentors are going to be with more than likely with Jamaican companies, and similarly, you will have opportunities there as well. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. If there are no more questions, I wish you all the best, and I hope that this has been useful for you.